I'm Stephanie, 29 years old, a digital marketer in Seattle building content that helps women overcome trauma and embrace their confidence. For 5 years, I barely spoke to my conservative family back in Riverton, Washington. So when my mom called out of the blue inviting me to a family dinner, I thought it was a chance to reconnect. I was wrong. Right in the middle of that dinner, she stood up, pointed at me, and shouted, "Your career is filthy, a disgrace to this family." Before I could even respond, she ordered me out of the house right in front of my dad and sister. Her words hit like a slap, her eyes blazing with contempt. Stunned and furious, I grabbed my bag and walked out the door, slamming behind me. 1 week later, my phone buzzed. It was her again, her voice softer but strained. "Your sister needs $100,000 for medical treatment," she said, as if she hadn't just humiliated me. My grip tightened on the phone, anger surging. Dirty money can't save people. I shot back, my voice ice cold, and hung up. I didn't know then that the truth behind her request was far uglier than I could have imagined. A secret that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. Before I dive into my story, a journey full of twists, I'd love to know what time you're listening and what city you're in. It's amazing to see how far these stories travel. Growing up in Riverton, Washington, a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, and the church was the center of it all, my family fit the mold of traditional conservatism perfectly. My mother, Denise, ran the household with an iron fist, always quoting scripture to justify her rules. She was the one who volunteered for every church event, baked pies for fundraisers, and made sure we never missed Sunday service. Her word was law, and questioning it meant you were straying from the path. My father, Gregory, was quieter, working long hours at the local mill and deferring to her on family matters. He nodded along to her decisions, rarely speaking up, which left me feeling like he was just along for the ride. My sister Angela, 4 years younger, seemed born to fit in. She joined the youth group early, memorized Bible verses without complaint, and dressed in the modest clothes our mom approved. Angela was the golden child, the one introduced proudly at church picnics, while I got sidelined if my ideas didn't align. My passion for marketing started young. At 10, I got a notebook from an aunt and began jotting down ideas for ads I'd seen on TV, imagining how I'd make them better. By middle school, I was creating fake campaigns for school projects using free online tools to design logos and slogans that empowered girls in my class to speak up. Denise saw it as a waste. "That's not a real skill," she'd say when I showed her my work. "Focus on something practical like teaching or nursing." But I couldn't stop. In high school, I started a blog on a free platform writing about ways teens could build confidence through creative expression. It got a few followers from school, and my English teacher praised it as innovative. That's when the conflicts escalated. Denise found the blog one day and called it frivolous, saying it encouraged vanity instead of humility. She grounded me for a week, insisting I delete it. I refused, hiding my laptop under my bed to keep posting. Things got worse when I saved up for my first laptop by mowing lawns for neighbors. Denise suggested I donate the money to the church, instead calling my hobby selfish. Angela, meanwhile, thrived under the rules. She excelled in choir and never pushed back, which made me the black sheep. I envied her ease, but resented how Denise favored her obedience. One night after I won a school award for a marketing project, Denise dismissed it. "Awards don't matter if they're for worldly pursuits," she said, her voice sharp. Gregory just sat there eating dinner in silence. The real breaking point came senior year. I'd been accepted to a marketing program in Seattle with a partial scholarship, but Denise had other plans. She'd arranged for me to attend the community college in Riverton, studying business admin, so I could stay home and help with church activities. When I told her I was going to Seattle, she exploded. "No daughter of mine will chase foolish dreams in a sinful city," she yelled across the kitchen table. Her face turned red and she slammed her hand down. "You'll end up broke and regretful." I stood my ground, voice shaking. "It's my future, Mom. I earned this scholarship with my work." Gregory tried to mediate weakly. "Maybe we can talk about it," he muttered, but Denise cut him off. "No, if she goes, she's on her own." That's when I discovered the theft. While packing, I checked my college fund account, money I'd saved from birthdays, and odd jobs matched by grandparents. It was empty. Denise had withdrawn it all, claiming it was for family needs. Later, I learned she'd donated most to the church to fund a new wing, boosting her status as a generous elder. "It was for a higher purpose," she said when confronted. The betrayal stung deep. I felt robbed not just of money, but of trust. Angela watched the argument wide-eyed, too young to understand fully. With nothing left, I took a bus to Seattle at 18, vowing to succeed despite her. Life in Seattle started rough. I crashed on a classmate's couch the first month, scraping by on ramen and coffee. My first job was waitressing at a downtown cafe, dealing with rude customers for tips that barely covered rent in a cramped studio. Evenings I freelanced small gigs, social media posts for local shops, building my portfolio one assignment at a time. The city was overwhelming with its rain-slick streets and fast pace, but it fueled me. No one here judged my ambitions or quoted Bible verses to shut me down. I reinvested every dollar into tools, a better computer software for campaigns. My breakthrough came 9 months in. A coffee shop regular needed help promoting her women's wellness event. I showed her my old blog samples on my phone, and she hired me for $500. The campaign went viral locally, drawing hundreds. Word spread, leading to more clients, startups wanting empowerment branding. I quit waitressing after a year, focusing full-time. By year 2, I'd launched my own agency specializing in content that helped women reclaim their voices after setbacks. The vengeful drive kept me going. Remembering Denise's dismissal, I pushed harder, turning rejections into fuel. When a big client signed on for a body positivity series, I felt a rush. Proof her frivolous label was wrong, but resentment lingered. Occasional texts from Angela were neutral updates on school or church. Denise never reached out directly, though I knew she monitored from afar. Once a client from Riverton mentioned hearing concerns about my work being immoral. I traced it back to anonymous posts online matching Denise's style. It ignited something. Not just anger, but a plan to counter if she ever crossed me again. That rumor was the first hint of her sabotage. A potential partner backed out after hearing things from church circles. I lost the deal, costing me thousands. Brushing it off, then I focused on growth. But it planted a seed. If she kept interfering, I'd fight back. Little did I know her manipulations ran deeper, setting the stage for what came next. Seattle tested me from the start. My first apartment was a shoebox with creaky floors and a view of a dumpster eating up my savings in weeks. I juggled 2 jobs mornings, slinging coffee at a downtown cafe, dodging snarky customers, and nights managing social media for small businesses to pay the bills. Every spare minute went to my blog, now focused on empowering women through storytelling and branding. I wrote about resilience, sharing tips on rebuilding confidence after setbacks. Slowly, it gained traction. A few hundred followers, then 1,000. The grind was exhausting, but it felt right, like I was proving something to myself and to the voice in my head that sounded like my mom's calling my work frivolous. My big break came a year in. A client from that first wellness event referred me to a startup launching a campaign for women entrepreneurs. I pitched a bold idea, a series of social media stories highlighting real women overcoming failure. They paid me $800 more than I'd ever made on one gig. The campaign exploded, shared across platforms, drawing thousands of likes. That job led to others. Nonprofits, small brands, all wanting my knack for authentic empowerment content. I quit the cafe, then scaled back freelance gigs, pouring everything into my agency. By year 3, I'd moved to a small but sunny one-bedroom in Capitol Hill, no longer counting pennies for groceries. My work evolved into something bigger. I started hosting online workshops, teaching women how to brand their personal stories. Divorce survivors, career changers, single moms. One workshop for a group of domestic violence survivors hit me hard. Their stories of reclaiming strength mirrored my own fight to break free from Riverton's rules. My first book, a short e-book on building confidence through marketing, sold modestly, but earned me a regional award for digital innovation. A women's lifestyle magazine featured me in a piece about body positivity campaigns, calling my work transformative. Each milestone felt like a quiet jab at my mom's dismissal, but the resentment never faded. Contact with my family stayed minimal. Angela texted now and then, brief updates about her teaching job or church events. I'd reply with vague notes about work, never mentioning my success. My mom never called, but I knew she lurked. A cousin mentioned seeing her check my blog, though she never commented. I figured she was just keeping tabs to criticize. Then the sabotage started. A major client, a Seattle nonprofit tied to Riverton's church network, pulled out after concerns about my content being too progressive. I dug into it and found anonymous forum posts calling my work immoral and anti-family. The writing style, stiff, preachy quoting scripture, screamed my mom. I traced the account to a Riverton IP confirming my suspicions. It cost me 2 more clients nearly $10,000 in contracts. The betrayal stung, but I didn't confront her yet. I was too busy rebuilding. I doubled down, landing a national campaign for a women's health brand. My workshops grew, some sessions drawing hundreds online. I hired a part-time assistant, Monica, a sharp friend from a marketing meetup, who became my sounding board. When I told her about the forum posts, she urged me to fight back. "Expose whoever's behind it," she said, her voice fierce. I hesitated. I wasn't ready to burn that bridge. But the anger simmered, mixing with memories of the stolen college fund. If my mom wanted to play dirty, I'd be ready when the time came. I kept my distance, focusing on work. Angela's texts grew shorter, her tone off, like something was weighing her down. Once she mentioned feeling stressed but didn't elaborate. I asked if she was okay, but she brushed it off. My dad sent a single birthday card in 5 years, signed only by him, no mention of my mom. The silence from her felt deliberate, like she was waiting for me to fail. I channeled it into my projects, turning pain into purpose. My latest campaign, a video series for cancer survivors, went viral, earning praise from industry blogs. It felt good, but not enough to erase the sting of those anonymous posts. Then out of nowhere, my phone lit up with a call from Riverton. It was my mom's number. My stomach knotted. We hadn't spoken in years. Her voice was calm, almost warm, asking me to come home for a family dinner. "It's important," she said, dodging my questions about why. I stared at the phone after hanging up, a mix of hope and suspicion swirling. 5 years of silence, and now this. I'd built a life she'd never acknowledge yet. Part of me wondered if she'd finally seen my success. But deep down, I knew better. Her call wasn't about reconciliation. It was about control. Something bigger was coming, and I was walking right into it. Driving 7 hours from Seattle to Riverton, I wrestled with why I was even going. The call from my mom had stirred up old hopes, but suspicion gnawed at me. I chose a sharp blazer and slacks, professional enough to signal I wasn't the reckless teen she remembered. Pulling into my parents' driveway, the house looked unchanged. Neat lawn, white shutters across on the door. My sister's car, a modest hatchback, was parked out front. I rang the bell feeling like a stranger at my own childhood home. My mom opened the door, her smile tight. "Come in," she said, ushering me to the dining room where my dad and sister sat. The table was set with her usual precision, polished silverware, a centerpiece of lilies. No one mentioned my life in Seattle. Conversations stuck to safe topics: weather, church news, Angela's teaching job. I kept waiting for the real reason I was there. After dessert, my mom cleared her throat. "So, Stephanie, you make money pushing women to flaunt their independence," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I froze fork midair. "I help women tell their stories through marketing," I replied, keeping my tone even. She scoffed. "It's filthy encouraging sin over family values." Before I could argue, she stood. "This house doesn't welcome your influence. Leave." Her words cut deeper than I expected. My dad looked at his plate, silent. Angela's eyes darted between us, anxious. I grabbed my purse, heart pounding with anger and hurt, and walked out. The door slammed, echoing in the quiet night. I checked into Riverton's only motel, a rundown place with flickering lights. Sleep didn't come. Why invite me just to attack? The question looped in my mind, fueling my resolve to find out. I stayed in town for a week, working remotely and digging into those forum posts from before. Monica, my assistant, helped me cross-reference IPs and church member lists. Nothing concrete, but the sabotage felt personal. On day 6, Angela texted asking to meet at a diner off the highway. She slipped into the booth across from me, looking pale, her hands fidgeting. "It wasn't just about your job," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "It's about me and Kyle." Kyle, her husband of 2 years, was a youth pastor, the kind of guy my mom adored. Clean-cut, devout, perfect on paper. Angela hesitated, then spoke. "Kyle's been controlling. He got into risky investments, lost everything, and took it out on me." Her voice cracked. "It's been bad, Steph. The stress, it's made me sick. I've got a heart condition now." My stomach dropped. Sick how I pressed. She explained chest pains, doctor visits, a diagnosis tied to chronic anxiety from Kyle's behavior. "Mom knows," she added. "She's been raising money at church, saying I need $100,000 for treatment." I leaned forward. $100,000 for what exactly? Angela's eyes filled with tears. "That's the thing. I don't need that much. The meds and visits are covered. Mom's exaggerating it, using my name to get donations." The pieces clicked. My mom's call wasn't about my sister's health. It was a scam. I contacted Monica, who dug into public church records. She found donation logs listing Angela's medical fund, with thousands funneled to accounts tied to my mom's name. A quick search uncovered fake medical reports, forged signatures, inflated costs, emailed to church members for sympathy. Worse, Kyle was in on it. Monica pulled bank transfers showing he'd siphoned funds to cover his investment debts. My mom wasn't just manipulating me for money. She was exploiting Angela's pain for her own gain, hiding behind her holy facade. I sat in my motel room staring at the evidence on my laptop. Anger surged sharper than when she'd called my work filthy. This wasn't just about control or judgment. It was fraud, plain and simple. Angela was trapped, her health crumbling under Kyle's abuse, while my mom profited. I thought of the stolen college fund, the online lies, and now this. Enough was enough. We're exposing her, I told Monica over the phone, my voice steady with purpose. At the church fundraiser next week. She's speaking there, boasting about her charity. That's our chance. Monica agreed, already pulling more records. I met Angela again, promising to get her out safely. She was scared, but resolute, handing me Kyle's old emails to my mom detailing their plan. The betrayal burned, but it fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for my sister. As the fundraiser approached, I started planning how to turn my mom's own stage against her. The morning after Angela's revelation, my phone lit up with my mom's number again. I stared at it, the motel's dim light casting shadows on the screen. Her voice came through softer than at the dinner, but still calculated. "Stephanie, I hope you've thought about your sister's needs," she said as if nothing had happened. "She's counting on you." My jaw clenched. The evidence of her fraud, fake medical reports, siphoned donations, burned in my mind. Dirty money can't save people. I said, my voice sharp and final, before hanging up. I wasn't playing her game anymore. This wasn't about helping Angela. It was about exposing Denise's lies and getting my sister out of danger. I drove to a coffee shop outside Riverton to meet Angela, who looked drained but determined. She'd brought more proof emails between Kyle and my mom outlining how they'd inflated her heart condition to milk church donations. "Kyle's been pushing me to stay quiet." She admitted, her voice low. "He says it's for the family's reputation." I squeezed her hand. "We're done with that. You're getting out, and we're taking them down." Monica joined us, her laptop open with spreadsheets of donation logs she'd hacked from public church records. We had enough to prove Denise and Kyle were pocketing thousands with Angela's health as their excuse. Back at the motel, I called my parents' house insisting on a meeting. That evening, I walked into their living room, the same one where Denise had thrown me out. She sat rigid at the head of the table, my dad beside her, his face tired. Angela hovered near me, nervous but staying. "I know about the donations." I started, holding up printed bank transfers. "You've been using Angela's name to scam the church." Denise's eyes narrowed. "How dare you accuse me of deceit in my own home?" she snapped. "Everything I've done is to protect this family's standing." My dad shifted uncomfortably. "Stephanie, maybe there's a misunderstanding," he mumbled, but Denise cut him off. "There's no misunderstanding. If you don't help your sister with the money, you're no longer part of this family." Her ultimatum didn't faze me. "You're not protecting anyone," I said, my voice steady. "You're exploiting Angela's pain for your own gain. I'm not giving you a cent." Denise stood, her face red. "Get out and don't come back." Angela grabbed my arm, whispering, "I'm with you." My dad said nothing, his silence louder than ever. As we left, I knew this was the last time I'd step foot in that house. The fight was on, and I wasn't backing down. Monica and I spent the next week building our case. Angela handed over Kyle's laptop password, revealing more emails where he bragged about covering his investment losses with church funds. Monica cross-checked them with bank records confirming transfers to his accounts. We found a forged doctor's note claiming Angela needed experimental treatment costing $100,000, a lie to justify the fundraising. I contacted a domestic violence hotline following their advice to secure a protective order for Angela. They connected us with a local advocate who agreed to help her relocate safely once we acted. The church fundraiser was in 3 days a big event where Denise would speak about her charitable efforts. It was the perfect stage. I told Monica my plan: pretend to offer a donation to get close, then expose Denise mid-speech with our evidence. Monica designed a slideshow, screenshots of emails, bank logs, the fake medical note, ready to project on the church's screen. Angela insisted on helping, recording a short statement about Kyle's controlling behavior and how Denise used her illness for profit. "I want them to hear my voice," she said, her eyes fierce. I nodded, proud of her strength. To seal the trap, I needed Kyle's confession. I called him, arranging a meeting at a park 2 towns over, away from prying eyes. He showed up disheveled, his usual polished pastor look gone. "Where's Angela?" he demanded, his voice edgy. "Safe," I said, holding up my phone already recording. "I know about the donations, Kyle. The emails, the fake reports, your debts. His face paled. "You can't prove anything," he stammered. I played a clip of Angela's statement, her voice shaking as she described his control. "Sign a statement admitting your part, or this goes to the police," I said. He hesitated, then grabbed the pen I offered, scribbling a confession. "You're ruining everything," he muttered. "No," I replied. "You did that yourself." Back in my motel room, Monica and I rehearsed the plan. She'd handle the projector cueing the slides when I gave the signal. I'd interrupt Denise's speech posing as a donor to get the mic, then reveal everything. Angela would stay hidden until the protective order was filed, keeping her safe from Kyle. We tested the slideshow, double-checked the audio, and practiced my opening lines to ensure no slip-ups. The evidence was ironclad. No one could deny it. Monica grinned. "She's going down hard," she said. I felt a rush of adrenaline, not just for me, but for Angela, who deserved freedom from this mess. 3 days later, the fundraiser night arrived. I walked into the church hall, blending in with the crowd of Riverton locals. Denise was on stage, all smiles, talking about her selfless work for Angela's health. My pulse raced as I clutched the USB with our evidence, ready to turn her moment of glory into her downfall. Monica nodded from the tech booth, slides prepped. As Denise's speech hit its peak, praising her faith-driven charity, I stepped toward the stage, heart pounding, ready to strike. The church hall buzzed with Riverton locals, their chatter filling the air as folding chairs scraped against the wooden floor. Denise stood on stage, her smile polished, delivering a speech about her tireless work to save my sister's health. She held up a photo of Angela, claiming every donation went to her medical bills. I stood near the back, USB drive in my pocket, my heart hammering. Monica gave me a nod from the tech booth, her finger hovering over the projector controls. This was it. The moment to tear down her facade. As Denise paused for applause, I stepped forward, raising my hand. "I'd like to say something," I called out, my voice cutting through the crowd. Heads turned. Denise's smile faltered, but she couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. "Of course, Stephanie," she said, handing me the mic. I took the stage, facing the sea of familiar faces, neighbors, churchgoers, people who'd trusted her. "I'm here to support my sister's cause." I began, my tone calm but firm. "But first, you all deserve the truth." Monica hit the switch, and the projector lit up with our slideshow. The first slide showed Angela's forged medical report, claiming $100,000 for treatments she didn't need. Gasps rippled through the room. I clicked to the next. Bank records of donations funneled to Denise's personal account. "This isn't charity," I said, my voice steady. "It's fraud." I played Angela's recorded statement, her voice trembling as she described Kyle's controlling behavior and how Denise exaggerated her heart condition to scam the church. The crowd murmured, some clutching their programs in shock. The final slide revealed Kyle's signed confession, admitting he'd helped siphon funds to cover his failed investments. Denise lunged for the mic, her face red. "This is a lie," she shouted. Stephanie's twisting everything to ruin me, but the evidence was undeniable. A church elder stood demanding answers. "Is this true?" Denise, he asked. She stammered, her holy image crumbling. I stepped back, letting the crowd's outrage take over. People shouted questions, some tearful, others angry. One woman, a longtime donor, threw her program at the stage. "You used us!" she yelled. Monica switched off the projector as the hall erupted in chaos. By the next morning, the fallout was swift. The church board stripped Denise of her elder position, demanding all donations be refunded. Longtime friends turned their backs, whispering as they passed her in town. Kyle was arrested, charged with fraud and domestic abuse after Angela's statement and protective order went through. She moved to a safe house arranged by the advocate, her health stabilizing with proper care. My dad called once, his voice heavy. "I didn't know it was this bad," he said, but I cut him off. "You let it happen, Dad. We're done." I hung up feeling no regret. There was no going back. 6 months later, Angela settled into a small apartment in Seattle, a short drive from mine. She started therapy, working through the trauma of Kyle's control and our family's betrayal. She enrolled in a community college marketing course inspired by my work and began a blog about her journey to rebuild. Her posts were raw, honest, drawing readers who saw themselves in her story. I helped her with branding, watching her confidence grow. My own agency thrived, landing a national campaign for a women's empowerment nonprofit. The success felt sweeter knowing Denise's lies couldn't touch me anymore. I never spoke to my parents again. Denise sent one letter claiming I'd destroyed the family. I didn't reply. Angela got a similar note, but she burned it, saying it felt like closure. My dad stayed silent, too weak to break from Denise's grip. I'd hoped he might reach out, but his absence proved he'd chosen her side. The cut was clean, final. I felt no guilt, only relief. A weight lifted after years of their control. My victory wasn't just exposing Denise, it was reclaiming my life, and Angela's free from their shadow. Looking back, I learned something critical: when family betrays you with lies and manipulation, justice is the only way to take back control. Denise thought she could shame me into submission using Angela's pain for her own gain. But exposing her showed me that truth is stronger than facade. You don't have to stay loyal to people who hurt you, even if they're family. Prioritizing self-respect and protecting those you love, that's what matters. This story is a warning. Watch for signs of fraud or control, whether it's fake charity schemes or someone using guilt to trap you. If something feels off, dig deeper. Find allies, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to walk away from toxic ties. The National Domestic Violence Hotline can help if you're facing abuse. I've seen it save lives. Trust your instincts and don't let manipulation define you. Thanks for listening to my story. It's been a journey from betrayal to victory, and I'm stronger for it. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more stories like mine and drop a comment below with your own experiences. How have you stood up to family betrayal? Let's share and keep these truths alive.
"You're confusing me with someone else," he said, his face draining of color as he tried to pull the woman beside him away. I stood frozen in the middle of the Sacramento Plaza, staring at the ghost of my husband, the man whose funeral I had arranged last year, whose death had shattered our family. Greg was supposed to be dead, lost in a boating accident, yet here he was, very much alive, holding another woman's hand. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just smiled and said, "Don't worry. I haven't told the insurance company." Then, calmly, "But tomorrow I will." His eyes widened with panic before he turned and hurried away, the confused woman in tow. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling with the implications of what I'd just discovered. My name is Brooklyn Turner, 47 years old, and until a few minutes ago, I was a widow. For the past year, I've been raising our 2 children alone in Boise, Idaho, working as a high school guidance counselor and trying desperately to help my kids heal from the loss of their father. I've spent countless nights crying myself to sleep, wondering how I would manage without him, believing he had died in a tragic accident. The police report had been clear. His boat had been found splintered on the rocks near the shore of the reservoir where he often went fishing. His belongings were scattered through the wreckage. His wallet, his phone, his favorite fishing hat. But they never found his body. "The currents can be unpredictable," they told me. "Sometimes the victims are never recovered." I had accepted it. I had arranged a memorial service. I had helped our children, Ethan, 16, and Zoe, 14, process their grief. I had filed the insurance claim, grateful for the financial security the $750,000 payout provided as we adjusted to life without him. But now, everything I thought I knew had been a lie. As I walked numbly back to my hotel, my phone buzzed with a text from my colleague at the education conference I was attending. Meeting still at 7 p.m.? I had completely forgotten. How could I sit through a professional development dinner when my entire world had just been upended? I texted back a quick excuse and returned to my room, my mind racing. What should I do? Call the police? The insurance company? Our children? I slumped onto the bed and opened my laptop. With trembling fingers, I began searching for information about insurance fraud investigations. As the screen loaded, I noticed an email notification, an alert from our joint credit card account that I'd kept open after his death. The subject line read, "Unusual activity detected on your account." What else had Greg been hiding? Greg and I met 20 years ago in Portland, where he worked as a financial advisor, and I was finishing my master's in counseling. His charm was irresistible. He was attentive, ambitious, and seemed genuinely interested in my dreams. We married after a year of dating and moved to Boise when he was offered a position at a prestigious investment firm. Our early years were blissful. We bought a modest house in a good school district, welcomed our children, and built what I thought was a stable life together. Greg worked long hours while I dedicated myself to raising Ethan and Zoe, eventually returning to work as a school counselor once they reached elementary school. There were signs looking back that I should have questioned. Greg's occasional unexplained absences that he attributed to client meetings or fishing trips, the strange phone calls that would end abruptly when I entered the room, the gradual emotional distance that grew between us over the years. But I trusted him. Even when our marriage hit rough patches, I never imagined he could be capable of such elaborate deception. The night before his accident, Greg had been unusually affectionate. He made dinner for the family, a rare occurrence, and suggested we plan a vacation for the following summer. "Life's too short," he'd said. "We need to make more memories together." The next morning, he kissed me goodbye and told me he loved me before heading out for a day of fishing. It was the last time I saw him, until today in Sacramento, 12 months later. After his disappearance, I discovered how little I truly knew about our finances. Greg had separate accounts I wasn't aware of. There were investments I didn't understand and debts I never knew existed. I had to hire a financial advisor just to sort through the mess he'd left behind. The life insurance policy had been my salvation, a $750,000 payout that allowed me to clear our debt, put money aside for the children's college funds, and maintain some semblance of financial stability. I had been grateful for Greg's foresight in maintaining such a substantial policy. Now I wondered if it had been part of his plan all along. In the weeks after the accident, there had been moments when I questioned the official story. A rental car charge on our credit card statement dated 2 days after his disappearance that the company claimed was an error. A mutual friend who thought he spotted Greg at a gas station near the Oregon border a week after the memorial service. The fact that his passport was never found among his belongings. Each time, I dismissed these inconsistencies as grief playing tricks on my mind. I wanted to believe in the simplest explanation. My husband was dead, and I was a widow left to pick up the pieces. How wrong I had been. The credit card alert led me down a rabbit hole of discovery. Greg had used our old joint card, a card I kept open but rarely monitored, to book a hotel room in downtown Sacramento, just 3 blocks from where I was staying for my conference. It couldn't be coincidence. Had he known I would be here? Was he following me? With shaking hands, I called the bank's fraud department, not to report fraud, but to gather information. "Yes, the card has been active for approximately 3 months," the representative confirmed after verifying my identity. "There have been charges in Sacramento primarily, but also in Reno and San Francisco." 3 months. He'd been using this card for 3 months, and I hadn't noticed because I'd been focused on rebuilding our lives. I thanked the representative and hung up, then immediately logged into the account to review the charges. Restaurant bills for two, jewelry store purchases, tickets to shows and sporting events. He hadn't just been surviving, he'd been living a comfortable, even lavish life while I worked extra hours to support our children. As I scrolled through the charges, a notification popped up on my phone, a reminder I'd set months ago for Greg's life insurance policy anniversary. The cruel irony made me laugh bitterly. Tomorrow marked exactly 1 year since the policy had paid out. Was that why he was in Sacramento? Was he planning to disappear again, this time with his new girlfriend, before anyone could discover his deception? I paced the hotel room, oscillating between rage and calculation. If I reported him to the authorities immediately, would they believe me? What evidence did I have beyond a brief encounter in a crowded plaza? Even the credit card charges only proved someone was using the card, not necessarily Greg himself. I needed more. I needed irrefutable proof. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop again and searched for private investigators in Sacramento. I found one with good reviews and called immediately. I need surveillance on someone, I explained, my voice steadier than I expected. I have reason to believe my supposedly deceased husband is alive and staying at a hotel downtown. The investigator, a woman named Veronica, didn't seem fazed by my bizarre request. I can start tonight, she said. Send me a photo and any information you have on his current appearance and whereabouts. I sent Greg's most recent photo from before his death, along with the hotel information from the credit card statement. Then I waited, checking my phone compulsively for updates. At 11:23 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Veronica. Target located. Entering hotel with female companion. Sending photos now. The images appeared on my screen moments later. There was no doubt. It was Greg, his arm around a blonde woman I'd never seen before. They were laughing as they entered the hotel lobby, carefree and untroubled by the lives they'd destroyed. Something hardened inside me. The shock and disbelief that had carried me through the day crystallized into resolve. Greg hadn't just faked his death. He'd stolen a year of my life, traumatized our children, and committed federal fraud in the process. He would pay for what he'd done. By morning, Veronica had compiled a substantial dossier on Greg's movements. She'd tracked him to a rented apartment in Sacramento, discovered he was using the name Andrew Miller, and confirmed he'd been working at a small investment firm for the past 6 months. "What do you want to do with this information?" she asked when we met for coffee. "Go to the police?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to understand why he did this first, and I need to secure evidence that will hold up legally." "That's smart," Veronica nodded. "Insurance fraud investigations can get complicated. Without solid proof, it could become your word against his." She was right. If I mishandled this, Greg might find a way to wriggle out of consequences. I couldn't let that happen, not after what he'd put our children through. I need to confront him directly, I decided. Somewhere public, with witnesses and surveillance cameras. Veronica frowned. "That's risky. He could flee once he knows you're onto him." "He won't," I said, surprising myself with my certainty. "His ego won't let him. Besides, I have leverage he doesn't know about." The leverage was simple. I hadn't told anyone about seeing him. Not the insurance company, not the authorities, not even our children. As far as Greg knew, I was still processing the shock of our encounter, giving him time to disappear again. But I had no intention of letting that happen. I spent the day formulating my approach, rehearsing what I would say. By evening, I had my plan. Veronica's surveillance confirmed that Greg and his girlfriend had dinner reservations at an upscale restaurant downtown. It would be the perfect setting for our confrontation. I dressed carefully in a black dress Greg had always loved, applied makeup to look polished, but not overdone, and made my way to the restaurant. My heart hammered in my chest as I spotted them through the window, laughing over glasses of wine. Taking a deep breath, I entered the restaurant and approached their table. "Mind if I join you?" I asked pleasantly. Greg's face went ashen. Brooklyn, he stammered. What are you doing alive? I finished for him. I could ask you the same question. The blonde woman looked between us, confusion evident on her face. Andrew, who is this? Andrew? I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you're calling yourself now, Greg? You need to leave, Greg hissed, standing up abruptly. You're making a scene. Oh, I haven't even started making a scene, I replied calmly, taking the empty seat at their table. Please, introduce me to your friend. The woman extended her hand hesitantly. I'm Jennifer, and you are? Brooklyn Turner, Greg's wife, or widow, according to the death certificate. Jennifer's eyes widened. What? Andrew, what is she talking about? Greg grabbed Jennifer's arm. She's confused. Let's go. I'm not confused, Greg, but I understand why Jennifer might be. I turned to her. Did he tell you he was divorced? Or did he create a whole new backstory when he faked his death and abandoned his family? Jennifer pulled away from Greg's grasp. Is this true? The restaurant had gone quiet, other diners watching our drama unfold. Greg looked trapped, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. It's complicated, he finally said. Allow me to uncomplicate it, I offered. 1 year ago, my husband faked his death in a boating accident. Our 2 teenage children spent months in therapy, dealing with their grief. I buried an empty casket while the insurance company paid out $750,000 in life insurance benefits. And apparently, while we were mourning, he was building a new life with you under a new name. Jennifer stood up, shaking her head in disbelief. You're married? With children? You told me you'd never been married before. Jennifer, please, Greg pleaded, reaching for her hand. I can explain everything. But Jennifer was already backing away, grabbing her purse. Stay away from me, you pathological liar. She turned to me. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. As Jennifer rushed out, Greg's face contorted with rage. Are you happy now? He snarled at me. You've ruined everything. No, Greg, I replied evenly. You did that all on your own. After Jennifer's dramatic exit, Greg slumped back into his chair, eyes darting nervously around the restaurant at the many witnesses to his humiliation. Keep your voice down, he muttered. This doesn't concern anyone else. Funny, that's exactly what I thought about our marriage, I replied. Until you turned it into an elaborate fraud scheme. The waiter approached cautiously, sensing the tension. Is everything all right here? Just a family reunion, I said with a tight smile. We'll need a moment. After the waiter retreated, Greg leaned forward. Look, I know this looks bad. Bad? I laughed without humor. It's insurance fraud, Greg. It's abandonment. It's years in federal prison. His expression shifted, a calculated look I recognized from our marriage, the one he used when transitioning from defense to negotiation. What do you want, Brooklyn? Money? I can split what's left of the insurance payout with you. What's left? I repeated incredulously. You mean the money you weren't entitled to in the first place? The money meant to support your children after your death? Greg waved dismissively. The kids are practically grown. They don't need... Don't. I cut him off, my voice deadly quiet. Don't you dare pretend to know what they need. You forfeited that right when you chose to disappear. A tense silence fell between us. I noticed his left hand was bare, no wedding ring, of course, but there was a faint tan line. He hadn't been Andrew Miller for very long. Why? I finally asked. Was our life together so unbearable that you had to fake your own death to escape it? Greg sighed, running a hand through his hair, a familiar gesture that triggered an unwelcome surge of memory. It wasn't about you or the kids. I got into some financial trouble, bad investments, people who wanted their money back. So instead of facing consequences, you decided to disappear and leave us to deal with the emotional fallout. I was protecting you, he insisted. These weren't the kind of people who take no for an answer. If I'd stayed, you could have been in danger. And the insurance money? Was that also for our protection? He had the decency to look away. I needed a fresh start. The plan was to establish myself, then reach out to you and the kids once it was safe. You expect me to believe that? I scoffed. You were building a life with another woman. Jennifer was complicated. She helped me get established here. One thing led to another. I shook my head in disgust. You haven't changed at all. Still dodging responsibility? Still blaming others? Greg reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled away. Brooklyn, please. We can work something out. Think about the kids. Do you really want them to go through the trauma of learning their father is alive but going to prison? The manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. The trauma you caused, you mean? Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. All recorded. Audio and video clear. Do you want me to remain on standby? A wave of satisfaction washed over me. Greg had no idea that Veronica was sitting 3 tables away, capturing our entire conversation with professional-grade surveillance equipment. His admission of insurance fraud and faking his death was now preserved as evidence. I stood up, smoothing my dress. I need to get back to my hotel. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Greg looked confused by my abrupt shift. That's it? We're not going to resolve this? Oh, I wouldn't say that, I replied. I am going to resolve this, but not in the way you're hoping. As I turned to leave, Greg grabbed my wrist. What are you planning to do? I gently removed his hand and leaned down to whisper in his ear. When I said I'd tell the insurance company tomorrow, I meant it. But they won't be the only ones getting a call. His face paled. Brooklyn, wait. Goodbye, Greg. Or Andrew. Or whoever you are now. I walked out of the restaurant with my head held high, leaving my supposedly dead husband very much alive but utterly shaken. Back in my hotel room, I met with Veronica to review the evidence. The audio and video were crisp, clearly capturing Greg's admission of faking his death and his knowledge of the insurance payout. This is solid, Veronica assured me. Combined with the documentation of his new identity and employment, it's more than enough for the authorities to act on. What about the financial trouble he mentioned? The people who supposedly wanted their money back? Veronica nodded. I can dig deeper into that. If there's truth to it, it could add another dimension to the case. I hesitated, a nagging doubt surfacing. What if Greg had been telling the truth about protecting us from dangerous people? Was I potentially putting our children at risk by exposing him? Let me make some discreet inquiries, Veronica suggested, sensing my concern. I have contacts who can verify if there were any serious threats against him before his disappearance. I agreed, then called the educational conference to excuse myself from the remaining sessions. This situation required my full attention. Next, I contacted a lawyer friend in Boise for a recommendation in Sacramento. By morning, I had an appointment with a well-respected attorney specializing in insurance fraud cases. Based on what you've told me, your husband committed multiple felonies, the attorney, Eleanor Wright, explained during our meeting. Insurance fraud, identity theft, potentially even bank fraud, if he used false identification to open new accounts. What's the likely outcome if I report him? Prosecution, almost certainly. The insurance company will want to make an example of him. He's looking at significant prison time and financial penalties. I nodded, absorbing this information. And what about the insurance money that's already been spent? That's complicated, Eleanor admitted. You weren't involved in the fraud, so you likely wouldn't be held liable for returning it. However, any unspent funds might need to be returned if the insurance company pursues civil action. My mind raced through the implications. Most of the money had gone toward paying off our mortgage and establishing college funds for the children. These were legitimate expenses for a widow with 2 teenagers. But the moral question lingered. Was it right to keep money obtained through Greg's deception? As I grappled with these questions, Veronica called with her findings. "I found something interesting," she said. Before his disappearance, Greg had indeed made some questionable investments, primarily with a developer who was later indicted for running a Ponzi scheme. Was he in danger? Not the kind he implied, Veronica clarified. He wasn't dealing with violent criminals, but he was deeply implicated in the scheme, possibly as a knowing participant rather than a victim. When the developer was arrested, Greg might have feared he'd be next. The pieces fell into place. Greg hadn't faked his death to protect us. He'd done it to escape potential securities fraud charges. The insurance money was his safety net, and we were just collateral damage in his escape plan. That evening, as I prepared to return to Boise, I received another text from Veronica. "You should know, he's making moves. Just purchased a one-way ticket to Mexico leaving tomorrow morning." My heart raced. He was planning to run again. With a newfound clarity, I picked up my phone and made 3 calls in succession. First to the insurance company's fraud division, then to the FBI's white-collar crime unit, and finally, to the Sacramento police. "My name is Brooklyn Turner," I said each time. "I need to report that my husband, who was declared dead last year, is actually alive and attempting to flee the country." As I hung up from the final call, a strange calm settled over me. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges awaited me and my children, we would face them with the truth, however painful it might be. Greg's days of running were over. They arrested Greg at the airport the next morning. I watched from a distance as officers approached him at the check-in counter, his face contorting in shock as they handcuffed him and read him his rights. The woman from the FBI's white-collar crime unit nodded at me respectfully as they led him away. I expected to feel triumphant or at least vindicated, but what washed over me instead was a profound sadness for what could have been, for the life we'd built and the trust he'd shattered. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. The insurance company launched an immediate investigation, freezing the remaining funds from the policy payout. The FBI expanded their inquiry to include Greg's professional activities before his disappearance, particularly his connections to the Ponzi scheme Veronica had uncovered. Through it all, I had to prepare for the hardest conversation of my life, telling Ethan and Zoe that their father wasn't dead after all. I flew home to Boise, arranging for a family therapist to be present when I broke the news. "Dad is alive?" Ethan repeated, his voice hollow with disbelief. "How could he do this to us?" Zoe cried, her body shaking with sobs. "We mourned him." I held them both as they cycled through shock, anger, and confusion. The therapist guided us through the initial emotional storm, helping them process the unthinkable betrayal. We decided together that they would wait before seeing Greg. They needed time to understand their own feelings first. News of Greg's resurrection spread quickly through our community. Neighbors and colleagues rallied around us, offering support and shielding us from the media attention that briefly engulfed our lives. My school principal granted me a leave of absence, understanding that my children needed me now more than ever. Meanwhile, Greg remained in custody, denied bail due to his obvious flight risk. His new identity as Andrew Miller unraveled quickly under investigation, revealing a carefully constructed paper trail that began months before his staged accident. According to the prosecutors, he'd been planning his escape for nearly a year, meticulously arranging the details while living with us, looking us in the eyes each day, knowing he would soon abandon us all. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom as Greg pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including insurance fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. His legal team had negotiated a plea deal to avoid the maximum sentence, but he still faced 8 years in federal prison and restitution payments to the insurance company. Before the judge delivered the final sentence, Greg was permitted to address the court. He turned toward me in the gallery, his face haggard from months in detention. "I never meant to cause so much pain," he said, his voice breaking. "I convinced myself I was protecting my family, but the truth is, I was protecting myself. Brooklyn, Ethan, Zoe, I know an apology isn't enough, but I am truly sorry. The judge was unmoved by his performance. Mr. Turner, you committed a calculated fraud that caused immeasurable emotional damage to your family and significant financial damage to the insurance company. Your remorse, while noted, does not mitigate the severity of your actions. As they led Greg away to begin his sentence, he looked back at me one last time. I held his gaze steadily, neither acknowledging his apology nor expressing anger. He had chosen his path. Now we would forge ours without him. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked how I felt about the verdict. Justice was served, I said simply. Now my children and I can truly begin to heal. Today, 1 year after discovering Greg alive in Sacramento, our lives have found a new rhythm. The insurance settlement was eventually resolved, allowing us to keep the funds used for the mortgage and children's education, which the company acknowledged were legitimate needs of a family who believed they had lost their provider. Ethan is now in his first year of college, studying psychology with an interest in trauma and resilience. Zoe has become an advocate for fraud awareness at her high school, turning our family's painful experience into an opportunity to help others. As for me, I've returned to counseling students with a deeper understanding of how life can change in an instant, and how resilience can be found even in the face of unimaginable betrayal. Greg's deception nearly destroyed us, but in surviving it, we discovered strengths we never knew we had.